Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today we have two of my lovely friends, Georgia and Matt. And actually, you've just celebrated your year anniversary of your wedding. So, what a great time to do a podcast about being one day and 1 week out, or just over 1 week. For me and Georgia and Matt, you're competing this weekend at the PCA finals. So, we're all in that tail end of prep, pushing through, pushing on. And Georgia, you've got another show after that in November, haven't you?
Yeah, both me and Matt do. So Matt's
Oh,
still
you've got
got
one.
stopping at that. We're both doing the one in November.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. And that Alicante?
Mm-hmm.
It's our first international show together, so it should be quite fun.
Oh,
Together, and because we've never actually done we kind of did 2019. We kind of did a prep together, but we didn't. Like Matt said, he was going to prep, but didn't until the last 4 weeks, and then so that doesn't count. He just turned up on show day with me. And then I obviously prepped all of last year and he didn't prep, and then my idea was I wasn't going to prep this year and he prepped, and then I feel like this is Matt's fault that I've now jumped into a prep this end of this year because he was on about going to Alicante, and I was like, well, if I'm going to pay to go watch you and travel over there, then I may as well just give it a go and enter. So this is actually our first prep together. It's always been one or the other. So
yeah, that'll be interesting actually to talk about that today because there's lots of things we can cover. I mean, the thoughts and feelings that you go through anyway at this point, it's a complete mind warping. It's something, as you know, we speak about on the pod a lot. And then obviously coming into post show as well. So lots of things we can cover. If we start with, so Matt, I've never had you on the pod before. Georgia's been on before kindly. How did you first get into bodybuilding?
I've been into it for a long, long time. So I'm 31 now, and I started lifting weights probably when I was about 13. It was a typical young lad, like bicep curls, bicep curls and chest press. That's all I did. And because of that, I never developed any legs.
I was going to say, this is issues now.
So thankfully, men's physique came along, and it was kind of made for me. So yeah, I've been seriously in the gym since like 20 years old. So 11 years. And my first competition was 2014. So I've been competing since then.
Oh,
So a fair amount of time.
yeah.
But interestingly, I'm now starting to finally making the transition to classic.
Yeah.
Which is a really exciting thing for me because it is what I've always wanted to get to. But even though when I was about 20, I did start training legs seriously and prioritizing them over my upper body, it's not a genetic strong point for me. But I'm finally, that's how long bodybuilding takes, all that time. And I'm finally at a position now where I feel confident to get in pants and get on stage.
Yeah, I think that's
the goal, clearly, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very relevant because I've spoken about it on the pod a few times where, sometimes you've got to fit into a category because of your genetic makeup, because of your training background, and then you can grow into other categories. But it takes time. And a lot of people, come into bodybuilding with higher hopes of going into certain categories, but actually their frame and their training age suits a certain category. So they've got to start there. So it's a really good point that you've raised that.
And it's a little bit like me in reverse, like in the sense I've not trained my quads in over a year. I'm because of being such a short ass, I'm like 5 foot with very quad dominant legs. So of course, like you get so many people, especially when I'm in like a building phase and they see these thick legs and they're like, are you like wellness? And it's like, no, they're predominantly fat. But I needed to grow my glutes and hamstrings to be bikini worthy, which they're still pushing. Like, I feel like as of about 3 days ago, I've noticed my glutes have now gone. But there's no point going, okay, well, I've got some quads, I'll do wellness, because even the glutes and hamstrings are even more leveled up from them. So I need to counteract that balance. So whereas Matt's growing his legs because he wants to level up, I need to fit within my means. It's a bit like my back was very dominant, which is fine if I wanted to do like NFM and PCA, but it's not needed as such for like IFBB. So then I have to think, okay, I need to prioritize what is needed. So definitely thinking about where you fit and what your structure is, what you like training, if you're willing to compromise. Because if you love training back and now you're back, like I do 2 back exercises a week, if that, do you want to make all those sacrifices, and then how you're going to mold yourself as well as what you enjoy into your categories?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're working with a coach and they're keeping that in mind, you've got to sort of switch off to the training plan when it comes through. It's like, I'll execute the plan rather than be too emotionally tied to certain exercises. But we've all been there where I love training back. Like there's certain exercises that got taken out. Like I haven't trained quads for quite some time. And I love doing a leg extension. I'm like, no more leg extension. But you have to do what the criteria and the federation asks for, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
It is an interesting one for sure. Like I've got clients that they love training certain, like you just said, they love training certain muscle groups, and even they like training too hard sometimes. And it's about, like you said, you've got to follow the plan and trust in the coach. And if that's your ultimate goal, to fit that category, you have to train for that category. You can't just train what you want. But there is a balance at the same time, isn't there? Because ultimately we're doing this because we enjoy it. So yeah, it is finding that balance. But luckily we found it for G, and yeah, she's had a pretty strong year through the growing phase, and hopefully it's going to show on stage
It's
next
not even
week.
been a year. You cut it short.
How does it feel? Do you coach each other, or you sort of combo it?
So I mainly, I coach George, and she's more like a lifestyle coach. She doesn't really like the pressure of prep coaching. So I do double check things with her, like for myself. So like if I check in, if I want a second opinion, I do trust her opinion.
I'll tell him if he needs to carry on pushing hard or whether he can take his foot off the gas.
Yeah, she'll squeeze my back.
I'll be the objective eye. Yeah. And then me, it's more the fact like Matt will be the one that guides me, because I turn very robotic. And I would just run myself into the ground. So I towards the end, I can turn very emotional to be like, I'm not there. And Matt can be the objectiveness, where I know he won't be soft on me. Like if I've still got fat on the back of my legs, he'll be like, we do have to push harder. But if I'm then too prep hole deep and I just think, do you know what, I'm still not there, but I'm getting there, he can be quite objective and be like, no, look at the positives here. So I think it's a good balance between the two, isn't it, to make sure like we get to where we need to be, not being soft about it, but also being realistic and making sure we get there.
Yeah, it seems to work, because we do know of other coaching couples that can't coach each other, because there is like a boundary there sometimes. Like it was a really funny scenario when we were in Marks and Spencer's, weren't we?
Oh no, yeah.
She was looking at, what was you looking at?
Oh, I had so much in my hands. Like, if you M&S is the best place to go, and obviously I love my Percy pigs. My Percy pigs are my number one.
That's what I thought straight away.
I had a load of pigs in my hand, and then it was around Easter, and then I wanted this Harry Potter golden chocolate egg, and I was like, oh, I want this as well. I was like, oh, and I was debating it and talking about it out loud. Of course, I didn't need it. No, like no one needs it, but you want it. So I'm like debating it out loud, and Matt goes, "Do you really need that though?"
But that was like I had my
coach's head on, because I don't need it. I've got pigs in my hand. Like, can't put the Percy pigs down and put the Harry Potter egg on. But then some woman obviously overheard, from what she sees from the outside of my partner going, do you need that egg? And she just literally walked behind me and went, you get it if that's what you want. And I was like, I think I will.
I honestly, I felt terrible, because I just I must have looked like such an arsehole.
He tried to redeem himself by going, you can do whatever you want. And I was just like,
I'm sorry.
I felt like being like, I'll blink if I'm in trouble.
There's so many weird little things that you do over the course of being a bodybuilder. Like that reminds me of, I used to go around Tesco's and pick things up, put it in my trolley, and then go around and put it all back, and then just buy my normal food. There's like these little things that happen, and you're like, how did that even happen? But obviously food focus is something that does come in, especially, when you get close to the show. And it's almost like it's a thought process, and your body's wanting more food to survive in essence, but it's trying to control those feelings and thoughts, isn't it?
Definitely.
Everyone's really individual with that as well. Like I find once I open the floodgates a little bit with carbohydrates, it won't stop. So I found that actually, just like for myself, reducing my carbs actually really helps me with cravings and things like that. But not everyone's the same. And it's just learning your body and what suits you, I think, is the best thing to do, and be in tune with your own body and your emotions as well.
Really I find that when I talk to Matt about stuff, like, if I'm thinking of certain things, when I sort of get it out and speak to him, it really helps to like get it out of my head, so then it doesn't become such a focused thought. Do you find that you can talk to each other about things?
Yeah, literally everything. I will turn into a stressed, anxious mess. And like even now I'll have to go through so much with Matt. But this is the only thing with being back end of prep where you can't function that well. And no offense to men as a race, but Matt doesn't listen. So when I want to get my thoughts out and I want to try and get some rational thinking, being a man and the back end of prep, I need to repeat myself sometimes. So I know he's always going to be there for me and to listen, but sometimes I need to be like, right, hang on, no, this point's important.
Yeah.
Listen to me, and then he'll switch on and actually be there for me. Whereas you're quite good with, I don't know, I think I'm very emotional when it comes, especially when it comes to food. And you're quite good, like you've planned out your off season, you're just gonna, jump your calories up, you've got this in place. And I'm like, well, this is a guideline what I'm gonna do, but whatever happens is we'll have to adjust as needed, depending how I respond mentally and physically to it. And I know that I can just talk to him if I need to, as it like occurs.
Yeah, for sure.
How are you post show, Sarah? Are you pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, again, with experience, that's come it more easily, that period of time, off the back of a show. I don't think that you can ever arm yourself with what the dump of emotions you get that following day. You wake up and you feel absolutely fucked. You've been, you've had a peak, you've been running, whatever calories up until you go into the peak. And then the next day, you've had the excitement, you've had the adrenaline, you wake up and whether you've placed, whether you've won, whether you haven't placed, all of those things go through your head, don't they? And it's quite hard to, I think, quantify it to people that haven't done it before. Especially, first timers that listen to the pod, they've potentially got this coming up. And I definitely think that, going through that several times, I can control myself more. And I actually mentioned on last week's pod that I tend to go for a few meals the week after a show at the end of the season, but I will like fast in between, and I'll go for long walks and have some rest from the gym, but then get back to the gym when I feel okay. And you can mediate it a bit, but that does come with experience, to be like, okay, you've had a meal, relax, go for a walk, because you're just ravenous, aren't you?
Again, that comes back to what I said a minute ago. Like so that's how you handle it quite well. For me, as I said, I reduced my carbohydrate intake, which sounds quite weird to most people, but as I said, once I start eating it, like I really struggle. So that works quite well for me. And I'm not sure about you, G. You're
I just like to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can eat. We're girls that can eat, aren't we?
I'm just like a bit of a bottomless pit. So I think the biggest thing as well is I'll always say to the clients as well that, especially as a first timer, you can't, like, we'll have a plan in place, but it's never one size fits all. So some of the girls want to reduce their, or bring their foods up, 150, 200 calories a time. And some people, we would just have to bulk straight up and relatively find a maintenance. Some girls love a plan, and some girls, want just to track calories and macros. And then we lay out a structure. Some girls just want a snack buffer. That's all you need. You might love all your foods, but you might be like, I just want 200 calories that I can fill, and I'll have a chocolate bar a day, and I'll have a bag of crisps a day, and whatever it is that's going to respond well to you. And like you said, you can't kind of explain how you're going to feel until you're there, but understanding that there's no right or wrong. It is going to be a bit sucky, because unfortunately that's just the way the body, that especially as a female, you want, like, your body is just like, get my hormones back, get me with some fat again. So you just have to know that it's not going to last, and ride the wave. If you have a shit day, draw a line under it, and for every good day, give yourself a pat on the back, and just take each day as it comes.
Yeah, for sure.
And stay with your coach.
Yeah, speak to your coach, be open and honest. I've, in previous preps, like right at the beginning, the first couple, I really went OTT on the post-show meal, and that's helped me now to understand that I wouldn't want to go back there. But I still did it a couple of times, and I remember phone calls with Stephen like, what am I going to do? I fucked it all up. And he'd be like, look, this has happened, this is what we do now. And when you can go back to, like you say, tracking, sometimes it could be just a calorie and a protein target maybe, and then your carbs and fats are distributed under the calorie umbrella. Or you can do different things depending on how you're feeling. It's just trying to, like you say there, which is gold, remember to pace yourself. And those things are always going to be there. but you just want to enjoy everything, don't you? It's very hard to switch that off.
Definitely. And don't start hoarding stuff before.
Yeah.
Like I know I briefly spoke to you about like some post-show treats and stuff, and I've bought a couple of things, but the good thing about the stuff I've bought is they're coming, I could pre-plan when they're going to be delivered.
Yeah.
So I've got one after my last show, and the other thing that I've bought is about 2 or 3 weeks later. So I haven't got it stored in the freezer. I know that I've got peace of mind. I know I've got stuff coming, but I haven't been storing a load of stuff in the freezer. And I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing, you know what, like you said, food is going to be there. It is going to be hard, but knowing that you can speak to your coach, knowing it's not the be all and end all, knowing that, like you said, even if you do like a protein and calorie target, you still give yourself routine, you still give yourself 3 to 5 set meals, give yourself set meal timings, know exactly what you're doing with it, have flexibility with different food options, but think about what you're craving, and planning ahead is going to be everything. You know, you can have that flexibility, like, but just make sure that you are fully aware of those feelings and you are in control of those feelings.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you can plan as well, you know, I used to look at menus before I go to places and things like that. And I think for first timers, and you'll probably agree, that can be quite a good idea because you can get your head around, you know, what's going to be there. And also, I think if you're going to go for a post-show meal, which most people do, if you can plan it and you can get excited about it, but don't focus on it too much, but know that there's foods that you're, you know, really going to enjoy, because everyone has certain foods they like. And then you can, you know, have a really nice palate experience and create memories with your friends and family that have been through the prep with you as well.
I think that's the thing as well. You get a lot of people after your show that go, now you can eat, now you can eat. And then you've got the pressure on, sometimes on the flip, where you actually want to be in control, but where you've got loads of friends going, should we go out to eat? You know, choose things like Nando's, you know, chicken and rice and stuff. So you can still feel a little bit more flexible. You can track everything. And then hopefully you've got peace of mind, because, you know, you can go a little bit because it's off plan, so to speak, but it's still on plan and you've got the best of both. But don't feel bad to say no to plans, because you know you still got to put yourself first, but also don't feel like you have to say no when, you know, think about being flexible on that front.
Yeah, for sure. And it's things like, you know, if people were to include things like alcohol or stuff like that, you know, maybe consider not doing that and going for a nice meal and then leading into things. Because also, you know, if you've cut out something like alcohol in a prep, and then you go back to it and then you add in all the different foods and all the different things, your body's suddenly like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's great. And
You get pissed after a couple of drinks.
yeah, and again, that sort of peer pressure from maybe people that aren't into bodybuilding that are around you can really get on top of you, and then it's all of these thoughts and feelings combined with peer pressure can really end up in a sort of dark place, as it were.
Yeah.
100%. When it comes to post show, like I think you need to approach it from two angles. You've got the emotional side of things, and then you've also got the side of things, like the progressive side of things. Like, how do you want to actually reverse and set up your post show and your off season in the most optimal way? So this is why me and George work quite well together, because she's very good at handling the emotional side of things. I'm very much a logical thinker. So I think whenever we have a client post show, I think how are we going to set them up in their most optimal way to get them into a healthy body fat position, because that's when you're going to be in a position to start building muscle again. And then G's really good at supporting them on that emotional journey to get them to that stage, because every coach is very, very different in the way that they handle post show. Some coaches, mainly old school coaches, I find, like to reverse people out very, very slowly. I much prefer the process of getting them to a healthy body fat percentage first and then go into the growing phase. But don't make the mistake of getting, like, because some people, when I say that, let's get you back to a healthy body fat percentage, they think, oh no, they're going to make me want to get fat. Like, that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
It's just getting back to an optimal standpoint, because we all know when you're lean, like, it's not healthy. Like, everyone agrees that, right? So why would you want to prolong the amount of time that you're lean for? Like, your sleep's fucked, your hormones are fucked, everything's all over the place.
Energy's
fucked. You're not in a position to build muscle whatsoever. So you need to get back to the healthy body fat percentage, and then you're in a position to grow. So I always think of it of a logical standpoint. And then, yeah, G's really good at like supporting them on that journey, because generally blokes are pretty good at doing that phase. But girls sometimes struggle a little bit, because understandably they've worked their arse off to get that lean, and seeing those shreds go is, you know,
yeah, I
it's
think
hard.
it's understanding prep is it's a purpose, it's not a lifestyle, and that's when you differentiate like the two. And yeah, I think the biggest thing as well, it's especially girls being quite emotional. If you don't reach out to your coach and tell them what's going on, it can be very, very hard, because obviously from a coaching standpoint, I'll message my girls, and if I don't get a lot back, I don't know what's going on. So the girls that then message me back or are willing to just message me, because I'd like to think my phone is always open for them to message me, because I'm not a mind reader to know when things are going right or wrong. I remember I had one girl who I knew was struggling, so we set up that I would message her 3 times a day as check-ins, to be like, okay, how are you feeling first thing in the morning? Then it was like lunchtime, how is your morning gone? How are you feeling mindset wise as we go into your afternoon? And then in the evening, how has the rest of your day gone? How are you feeling this evening? And then we do that for like a few days and just see how she's doing. Because if you're struggling, like, reach out to your coach, like, your coach is there to support you, but at the same time, I never want to be on your case to be like, how are you doing, how are you doing, how are you doing, for them to be like, I'm fine, like, back off. So it works both ways. The more that they can communicate with us, the more we know she's smashing it, he or she's smashing it, or do you know what, we just probably need to send an extra message. But then blocking things out or leaving your coach especially and just going, oh, I've done my show now, you know, you just don't want to set yourself up for, not for failure, but to feel any negativity towards yourself, because post show is hard, you know, putting the healthy fat gain back on, you know, understanding the best way to approach food and making sure that you're happy within your body composition and all those other things. It can be very hard if you just leave your coach and then just go off on a whim, and then you get like a few months down the line and you're like, oh shit, what just happened?
Sure. And there's lots of instances where people, you know, go off on a complete tangent, and within a couple of weeks they can put on, you know, I had Charlie on last week and he was saying he heard of people putting on 8 to 10 kilos in, you know, a week, 2 weeks. And, you know, you're going to feel so different in that body to being staging. And although staging isn't healthy, as we know, you know, do you want to bounce that quickly and have that complete transformation? And then you're in this space of, what the fuck do I do now? And then it might end up you restrict and try and go back, and everything's all over the place. And like you said earlier, Matt, you know, hormones, sleep, all of those things that are affected for females, the menstrual cycle stopping, you know, different things that occur. It's really important that you get back up to a healthy weight, but then a healthy weight is different per person, isn't it? So this is why it's so important to have a coach with you all the way.
100%. And it's a tricky one sometimes. Like, we talk about it a fair bit, but we never want to come across like, sometimes we're worried that we say, oh, stay with your coach because we like want to keep our clients for longer. It's not about that. It's literally our mindset is for them. Like, we want them to be in the best possible position, because like you just said, there's such a fine line there, because you can stay too lean for too long, and that's bad, or you can gain it too quickly, and that's also bad. I know someone, a friend of mine, who he left his coach. I advised him not to. He left his coach, and he has completely gone the wrong way. It packed it on far too quickly. His blood pressure's through the roof, and he says he nearly blacked out putting his shoes on. So yeah, that happened over the course of 3 weeks, which is crazy. So it can easily happen. And
well, I know for a fact, if I don't have Matt, like, I do turn very food focused, and I am an endless pit when it comes to food, as most people are post show, but I don't have something that would tell me to stop. So I know, like, I would be absolutely, as much as I am a coach and I do know about my hunger signals and all that, I also can appreciate post show sucks, and it's very easy to just, you know, have a bad day. And if it isn't for Matt holding me accountable, I would. And post show is also hard because you're more likely to hold a lot of water at the end of the day. Remember, especially if you bring your food up, it can be a bit of a dramatic difference. For me, like, I store so much water from carbs, so you've got the rough patch until your body composition settles down again. So some people reverse really lovely and their body just absorbs carbs and, you know, responds well, and they'll still be dropping and you're like, more food. Me, you give me more food and I do turn into a water balloon. So I've got to ride the rough patch for a few months where I feel even worse about myself, to then know my body composition will settle down. But it's such a hard mind fuck, especially when you see other people, because you'll always see people on Instagram posting how amazing they're doing post show, and you'll see anyone that's gone quiet means they're struggling. But because your then page is full of people that are like doing amazing and you're sat there struggling, it can be really hard. So I'd like to think that although it's really annoying for me, I can relate to the people that are struggling, because I want to get my body fat up. I want to, I want food again. I do. I want, my menstrual cycle back. I want to have energy. I don't want to be on, over 2 hours cardio. I want to be having a lifestyle again.
Yeah.
But I have to accept that the 2 months post show, say, I'm probably going to be looking at not at my best, because I'll be holding a lot more water while my body's trying to adjust to hormones and fluctuations and everything. And then hopefully a few months later, a body composition will settle down and things will be in a better place for me. But it's knowing you're putting yourself to an extreme. So do give yourself the patience when you come out of it as well, and be kind to yourself about it.
Yeah, for sure. How are you feeling about being post show in Alicante?
Well, we're coming back the same day. Well, literally the same. So we're not making a holiday out of it. We've got a couple of nice meals planned so we come back on the Saturday because we compete on a Friday. We've got a nice day planned together on the Sunday, and a nice meal planned on the Monday. And then we're just going to try and get back into routine. So a few days, just having a little bit of free reign. But again, we've planned a nice long walk. We've planned to be out and about. We're still going to train, but just that little bit of freedom, especially because obviously we couldn't celebrate our anniversary. So just trying to be normal, have a few different types of foods, and then we'll get stuck back into we'll have an action plan, depending how we're feeling, again, mentally and physically, to then follow on from Tuesday.
It was quite funny because, we had our anniversary yesterday, and we said to each other, we'll celebrate afterwards. Like, we're so close to the show, we can't do anything now anyway. And then G was like, well, I've realised you did actually get me an anniversary present. You dropped my calories. I was like,
yeah, I had to check
calories. Happy anniversary.
Bad times.
Have you got are you going by look, George, or are you going for body weight? What's your game at the moment?
So we went off the way I looked last year to body weight as a gauge of rate of loss. So we do have a number in mind. But right now, because it's 10 days out or something, is very much a look. The top half and front, I would say I'm nearly there. It's always the back of the legs, isn't it? And that's going to be the look. So I do my check-ins, and if my legs aren't there, then we push harder. So that's what we've had to do. We've dropped the calories and we push harder.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because you pick up inflammation in the legs very easily. And then you've got to pull leg training and cardio however far out from the show. And it's such a tricky spot to be in, isn't it? When you have got that stubborn area.
It can be very tricky, yeah. But like you said, we do use the scale weight as a sort of a rough guideline. And we've used that pretty much through her, because it's a short prep again. We've had to have, tangible targets there. And we've been making sure that we hit those. If we don't hit those, then we've needed to step it up, because realistically, she did have a bit of time in the off season. We've anticipated a bit of growth there, but realistically, bikini girl, you're not going to pack on kilos and kilos of muscle tissue. So it does give you a fairly accurate sort of weight to go by. And to be honest, she's 0.8 off of the target. So I think it's going to be pretty much bang on, to be fair.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But we know how much my body weight fluctuates so much. So I would have some points where this is again why I can relate to the girls, because I do get emotionally attacked. Like, you work your fucking arse off, and then when it's not budging, and then you get a drop, and you're like, right, I'm onto something, and then it shoots up the next day, and you're like, no, you can piss off again. Like, and
it's like that.
Yeah. So it's good to have a rough guide, but we know like my body weight can just fluctuate so much. So it is very much just head down, keep ticking those boxes, and towards the back end now it's very much a visual thing. Like, I treat like my check-ins no different than any of the other clients. Like, I do my videos in the morning, I send them over to Matt through WhatsApp, and then he goes through everything, and then we make sure that we're happy with a plan, just so it's treated no differently, and we've got all the feedback logged.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's quite odd sometimes, because that's literally, so G does her check-in with me exactly how clients do the check-ins. I send a voice note back with like the coach's head on, and sometimes it does seem quite strange. She's only upstairs, but I'm sending her a WhatsApp voice note. It's quite odd, but it works.
I know lots of other couples that do that. George, who comes on the pod, he does that with his other half. Like, he said he didn't want to sort of muddy the water, as it were, and he wants to, like you said, put the coach's head on for the check-in, and then when they're together the rest of the time, not be talking too much about it and let it overtake things.
So now that we're at the back end of prep, we do talk about it a lot, but I think you always want to get my opinion with stuff, and half the time when I talk about things, I'm just getting my emotional thoughts out and my stresses out. So it's quite good, like, in that sense. But yeah, no, we do try and keep it. To start off with, I remember when Matt first brought it up about coaching me, and I was adamant I wouldn't have him as a coach, because I was just like, I won't listen to you. Like, it's nothing against you, because I fully respect you in as what you will, like, say as a coach, but I just don't think I will listen to you. And now I'm like, your word is God. And like, just tell me what I need to do and I will just do it.
I will just crack on. And have you started plotting out how long you think that you'll go into an off season for yet?
Yeah, we've got it all planned out. Next year, we're just going to be normal.
Next year, yeah, we're just growing for the whole of the year. Basically, we do this for everyone, to be fair. We plan out, like, so we work backwards on the shows. We had a little look how long we really need to grow realistically. And then we pick out, because shows are usually around the same time each year anyway, aren't they? So yeah, we've already mapped it out to 2024, basically what shows we're going to go for. So yeah, it's given us basically until December next year to grow. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting stuck into that.
That'd be nice. What about you?
I'm actually thinking down the similar path. I've been competing now for like 9 years, and I've never had longer than sort of 10 months in an off season. And I don't know if it's more from the respect of wanting to enjoy life a bit more. Obviously, being with Matt now and coming away from my previous marriage, like, I wasn't happy for quite some time. So bodybuilding for me was like this outlet, and I was really focusing and funneling in everything into that. And now I'm happy. I'm like, I feel like it'd just be nice to, be able to be more flexible and not come away from bodybuilding. But, preps takes up to, say, 6 to 8 months of your life where you need to tick the boxes, hit the daily things that are set. It is hard. And I do love prep, as you know, but it's tough, isn't it?
It is tough. It is tough. When did you start prep this year?
So I started middle of April. So it would be a 6-month one, this one.
Yeah, all through the summer. It's a long time. I was saying to G, this is the longest, because I don't know if you knew, I competed earlier in the year, so I'm basically done 2 preps in the year. So it's pretty much been my whole year. And if you've probably done that before, Sarah, haven't you? And
yes,
that is so tough. So yeah, we're looking forward to, very similar to you, having next year to just be normal.
Well, yeah, because
to be
my
honest.
year last year, your year, it was COVID the year before, my year last year, your year this year. So it's like, let's just have a year of being like normal. Enjoy.
And also with coaching people, I'm really excited for some of my clients are going into prep next year for the first time. And I really want to immerse in that and like you do, attend shows and things, and not maybe being prep myself, just really focusing on them.
Yeah, 100%. It does make a big difference, because although we were always there for them, if we're competing at the same time, like NFM, for example, we've got 2 clients competing at that show, and then we're both competing at that show as well. So it makes I don't know, it's a lot more, because you've got to juggle a lot around. Right? Like, I've got to think about all their meals, their stage times, everything like that. Then G's as well, then mine. It's doable, and I would, if my service ever dropped, I would stop my own prep immediately. But it's not as fun to compete, if that makes sense. So it's a tricky one to balance. But yeah, I know 100% what you mean, and we're looking forward to doing that as well, because I think we're going to have more competitors next year. And we're similar to you. We basically go to all the shows that they compete in. So it'd be nice to do that whilst not in a harsh calorie deficit.
Yeah, and just be like, oh, we've got a nice road trip. We'll stop for lunch on the way.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's basically it. We said, like, on the way up, we can get Krispy Kremes for the services.
Oh my God.
It's like novel things like that, isn't it? That, like, it's hard, because I always say, as you know, I don't want to slag off bodybuilding ever, and prep is a choice. But you can't do novel things like that. You can't just pick up something in a shop and eat it. Everything's on plan for the 6-8 months, however long, maybe even longer, like for you, Matt. Even when you qualify for a show earlier in the year and then you go back into the end of the season, in between you're still tracking, you're still on it. Okay, you might be able to come up to maintenance or be able to come out the deficit a little bit, but then you still got to go back down.
Yeah, it's very true. It is pretty tricky, isn't it? So yeah, we've picked out a few places. I don't know if you know that one in Birmingham. What's the one in Birmingham? Do the Biscoff burgers?
Strip club street food.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been there, Sarah.
No.
Oh, it's so good. And yeah, every time we've got clients competing in Birmingham, we're like, we want to go there.
Yeah, we did it post Arnold's, didn't we?
We did post Arnold's, yeah, and it was good. So yeah, if we can go to all these restaurants when we're not in prep, when our clients are in.
And there's nothing better than a burger and chips post show. That's my go-to.
Is it? That's your go-to? Yeah, ours is pizza.
Is it? Yeah. So I've always it took a few years to understand what I really wanted post show. I'd be like, oh, I want all this fancy stuff. And then I had a burger and chips after a show one year and I was like, do you know what? That just hits all the buttons, and then some sort of baked good and I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm pizza and baked good.
Yeah. It's nice I find now, me and Matt talk about what we're going to do after the show, but it doesn't make me I'm not like, oh my God, I'm counting down the days till I get it. I'm like, I'm really excited to make memories and sit down with Matt and just look at a menu.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We're really excited for Christmas markets and things like that, to be able to go to that and just sort of enjoy that experience a little bit. Because when you're in the back end of prep, you are so busy thinking, right, I've got steps to do, I've got this meal prep, I've got this meal timing for this. So when you're around a Christmas market, it's like, well, do I have my final meal before we go at 7, or are we going to the Christmas market the day and then I've got to get back for my chicken? Yeah. And then you're looking at all the stuff and because it doesn't even need to be that you binge at a Christmas market. It just needs to be, if you want something, you can have it. But if you don't, you've got something at home. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's just towards the back end of prep, it can be quite restrictive because you do turn robotic. It is set timings to make sure you get everything done. It's quite funny listening to this podcast because now it sounds like all of us hate prep, which absolutely isn't the case. Otherwise we wouldn't do bodybuilding. We love bodybuilding, but when you have been in it for a long time, you've just got to try and enjoy each phase. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look forward to something afterwards as well. We have a couple of clients that they've asked us to create their off-season plans before the end of their prep because they want that to look forward to, the training phase. And because after you get your feedback from the show, what areas you want to improve on, right? So sometimes they ask for that beforehand, and we're more than happy to do that because then they can have something to look forward to straight away, and we can start working towards that. So it's always looking forward to what comes next and enjoying the next phase of the journey, but also being in the moment too and enjoying the moment you're in.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Prep is very full on. So I think it's very easy, especially for first timers, to feel so lost and be like, well, I've dedicated 6 months solely for this one day of, 5 minutes on stage that you can then be done and be like, wow, what do I do now? Because you've made you've made yourself that person. So I think that's why it's okay to be like, you can enjoy a normal life. That doesn't have to shape you, but know that you can use that to come back better and use all this off season and building phase to make up your relationships, your friendships, your family time, so then they accept it loads more when you go back into a prep again, because you're creating that balance. So you can give prep absolutely everything because in the other 8 months or whatever that you can juggle everything.
I think that's, like you said earlier about hoarding foods and things, I think that's such an important thing because it's those types of things that then make the food focus so much worse because the stuff is in your house and it's near you. Whereas if you're looking forward to a meal with family and friends and creating memories and having some nice food at the same time, it can be a really nice experience. And I've been there, you probably have, George, when you're backstage and everyone's bringing out loads and loads of stuff out their bag and you're like, oh my God. And I always find, it's stuff that you could actually track in an off season. So it will be, it might be like Reese's butternut cups and things like this. And I've always said on the podcast, like, try not to give in to things that you could track in your off season. Go and have something that you wouldn't be able to track, like a real nice experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that's why things like get something a little bit special, like get those baked goods and stuff, because that's something you can enjoy, go out for a meal and just think, that's your like freedom, and hopefully it refreshes your mindset because you've just gone in, you've had that nice time with your friends and family without any expectations, and then it kind of gives you that restart to then go into your building phase, get right back on plan, because especially the first few weeks or months, like I've said to Matt, I want to treat after Alicante still like a prep, so to speak. Like, I'll see how my body responds to certain things depending how I reverse out, but I still am going to be obviously checking in, once, twice a week. I'm still going to watch how my body responds and know that that's going to be vital in the lead up to Christmas, because like I've done preps like obviously like last year, and I finished in like October. By Christmas I was a Christmas pudding. Like I don't want that to happen again.
Yes, you can learn from it.
Yeah.
It's with bodybuilding, like you said earlier, Matt, it's years. It's, if you're going to do this and do it to a good level, or continue your path as a bodybuilder and continue competing, you're looking at years worth of experience and putting all of that time and effort in. And like you say there, George, in an off season, it can still be really, really structured. It doesn't mean when you're in off season that you just throw everything and you just eat whatever you want, but you can incorporate different experiences within the bodybuilding a little bit easier than in a prep.
100%. We don't even like to call it off season, do we? We call it building phase, because there's no off season really in bodybuilding. If you want to take it serious and progress up the ladder, you don't take time off, but you can have a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's really key. Definitely key. I just realised I don't actually know what shows you've got lined up. You've got FitX lined up, haven't you?
Yeah, so FitX Finals is my last one.
That's the last one, is it? Okay,
yeah.
And that's next weekend, right?
Yeah, so that's on the Saturday, and then your one's on the Sunday, NFM, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I'm actually doing 2 shows next weekend.
Yeah.
Because we're going up the day before anyway, because we want to be like fresh for NFM, so we're going to have the hotel up there. And literally half an hour away from the hotel, there's a show called Battle of Bedford.
Oh, yeah, I've watched that one before.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've never competed at that one. So I thought, I'll just do that whilst I'm up there.
Why not? So is that on the Saturday?
That's on the Saturday, yeah.
And then the NFM, George, are you a pro?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Matt, is it your first time?
First time with NFM as well, yeah.
Yeah. It's a very different federation to any federations I've experienced. Like it's almost like a casino type entertainment setting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's loads of fun. So like, because of the way I did think about doing Battle of Bedford since we were there anyway, but I hold water very easily and I get stressed very easily. And obviously I want to make sure I just do everything to I will only punish myself if I enter Battle of Bedford and I don't come very well, or like I'll have to change my peak week. I'm just a massive stress head. So I am quite happy to take a backseat and just fully support Matt in this one. He's so much better with stress than I am, so he can handle everything. So yeah, I'm going to support him in that one. And then yeah, we've got a busy day because we've got a client doing bikini, we've got a client doing men's physique and masters physique. Yeah. You're doing classic and physique.
Yeah.
And we'll be in the pro show doing bikini.
And is Imogen doing pro as well?
She's not a pro yet, so she'll be doing the amateur, but yeah, so she's doing that.
Hoping to get the pro card.
It'd be a good show. Like you said, it is quite different, isn't it? I find it's a lively atmosphere. Like last one we went to, that you competed in, they had like a really good DJ and it was like really lively. And I feel like they're trying to put a lot of focus into building athletes like profiles as well. I don't know if you've seen on their Instagram. It's kind of like WWE interviews, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's quite a cool little take on it.
I do like Suki, the guy who's like behind it, just because you can tell he like gives a shit about the athletes and wants like to push the athletes forward, not just like someone for the name of the name. Like he cares. So
that's what I liked about FitX, because it was the first time I competed with them a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, this is what I live for, like the bodybuilding community vibe. I love it. And it makes such a difference to show day, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Darren's literally the nicest guy.
Oh my God. He's on stage patting everyone's tan down.
Nice guy.
I
Yeah.
think I'm hoping for good vibes for the expo this weekend. PCA
Expo, yeah, first one.
I feel like that could be a good, because it is the first expo, that could be a good vibe.
Are you peaking at the moment then, Matt?
Yes, yeah. So that's why I'm a little bit chirpy today, because it's my carb load day. But if we did this earlier in the week, honestly, I would have been useless.
That's why I said, like, let's do it on Thursday.
Don't you find, though, we were saying this on last week's pod, like when you do a carb load, it's almost like you're hungrier and you almost feel more knackered in a way, but then you're mentally more cognitive, but you're like, my body just doesn't really want to do much.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Yeah. So it's like you crave the carbs, but like I said to you earlier, like once I have carbs, it releases the floodgates and I get really hungry. And I also have gone, I won't lie to you, I'm always very honest, I've gone hypo a couple of times just because I think my sensitivity is like super, super high. So if I have some carbs, like, yeah, I sometimes do crash quite easily. So I have to, put some fats in there as well. And it's amazing eating the foods, but yeah, your body sometimes doesn't, because you're so deprived of it.
Yeah,
it doesn't know how to process it very well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is a weird one. Plus, I'm carb loading quite aggressively as well, or more aggressively than I've done before.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting sort of experiment the last couple of days, but I seem to be responding quite well. So fingers crossed it'll pull off for Saturday.
Do you guys normally stick with sort of a standard carb load, or have you ever delved into fat loading as well?
So basically the standard sort of, everyone's so different, as you know. So for the standard approach for me, I do a fat load at the start of the week, carb depletion, and then I usually do a back end carb load. This time I'm doing it a little bit differently in the fact that I'm on quite early on Saturday. And I wanted to load more. I want to come in as big and full as possible for PCA because that's what they like. So I'm loading Wednesday, Thursday aggressively, and then I've got Friday to either put in more or come back to baseline. And then on show day, I don't eat anything because I have to keep my waist in. If I eat a little bit on show day, my waist goes. So that's what I do. G, unfortunately, sniffs a rice cake and blows up with water.
Mentally, I love carbs. Physically, my body's against me.
So it's a bugger.
We do not carb load, George, unfortunately.
We call it a carb load to make me feel better, but it's not.
What does it look like?
What's that?
What does it look like, your peak?
100. When I do, like I say loosely, carb load, so I've got to deplete for 3 or 4 days. We'll check in on Sunday and see, and it'll be a 3 or 4 day depletion, and I'll still be digging, so I'll still be doing my cardio and my training and stuff. But
not necessarily.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it daily, but that's a rough layout. And then when I do carb load, I think it's at 150 grams of carbs.
It's basically just bumping her up to almost maintenance calories.
Giving me a little bit of life, but so I don't look so bedraggled.
Just to freshen her up a bit, basically.
And we want to do it, like, it'll probably be done Thursday. And then knowing, I would love it that I could then replicate that on Friday. But knowing the way my body responded last year, we then normally need to pull back and then pull out all the carbs. So I've got rid of all my water by the show day. So yeah, it's not the most fun peak, but I've got to do what my body needs to do to try and bring my best. So
it's not very enjoyable for her, but at the same time, a carb load for G isn't actually needed because she's already borderline between bikini and train bikini.
Yeah.
Last year, she was bumped up to train bikini, and we want to keep her in bikini. So we don't actually want to carb load her anyway. Yeah. We obviously should like to, just because she likes carbs. But from a coaching perspective, it's not actually a benefit. All we need to do is just put off inflammation, fatigue, and keep her as calm as possible. And that's all we really need to do for G for peak week. And then we will water manipulate as well. I
mean, looking at some of the NFM winners this year alone, they have been a bit from bikini class, they have been a bit of a more fuller muscular standard than last year. So that's always something positive because, yeah, I want to fit in bikini, not athletic, mainly because like we've pulled away from my back training compared to last year. So my back isn't as dense. And I'm hopefully coming in leaner, whereas I think I looked bigger last year because my legs weren't quite in, so my legs looked a bit bigger. So I think my overall shape looked a tiny bit bigger last year. So obviously I do want to come in leaner, and things should be proportionally a bit different. And you know, going off the previous winners, you know, bikini, I should fit in that. But yeah, it's just making sure that I'm full and I've got like that life in me, but I'm not overspilled and I'm not watery.
Yeah, it's a very fine art, isn't it? And also trying to have a bit of energy there to be able to then perform, because you could be on stage for, I've been on stage for like the maximum 45 minutes, which doesn't really happen now, but you might be on for like 20 minutes and it is hard.
Yeah, 100%. What about yourself? What's the peak week look like for you?
I don't know yet, but my weight has gone like dramatically lower than I've ever gone before. Like, well, my first ever competition, which is when I ever share it on Instagram, it's like a pink bikini and I'm literally like a bag of bones. I'm 0.5 off of the weight of that. So I'm really depleted now. So Tom's just bumped up my carbs and my fat by like 5 grams. Carbs have gone up by, so went up to 150 from 50 and then went up today to 180. So we're just hopefully cruising in now. And then, but before, like all of the shows that I've done, I've dug pretty much until like 2 days out. So you've got to really deplete down to have an effective peak as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's, we were literally having this conversation I think earlier, how some people you know, they're not ready for the show yet, and they know they're not ready. They've said it in their Instagram posts, but then their coach is pulling them out of like of training and cardio, pulling out like more like 8-9 days before show. It's like the amount of time you can still dig in that time. And like, yes, you're going to drop off some fatigue and inflammation from the legs, but the amount of digging that you can do would be far more beneficial than that tiny bit of inflammation that you'll lose, because you can still, you know, take the last couple of days rest before show day. But you know, losing 8 days of digging to me is not worth that trade-off of a little bit of inflammation that you'll get off, which you can get off anyway in 2 days. So
and like you said, for the bikini category, we don't need such a harsh peak. Like Tom always says to me, like you just said about G, like, I know you want to do a big peak, but your bikini. He's like, we're gonna have 200 grams of carbs. I'm like, oh, okay. So we're on maintenance then.
That's it. It's just not needed, because like, what, like imagine that, like if you do carb up, like it goes all great, and then they bump you up to train bikini and then you're small in that, like that's not what you want anyway, is it? So save the carbs for after the show.
Do you find it's hard for you doing different federations, Matt, to tweak the look, or have you found that men's physique, they're all looking for a very similar thing?
So I don't want this to come across like I'm bashing the Fed, because I'm not at all. But every Fed's been the same for men's physique apart from Fitex.
Okay.
And the reason being is they just have their own personal opinion of what they like. But I've had a few people that look absolutely amazing and have dominated other shows. And then they've not placed at all at Fitex because their class is too big. So it's pretty much standardized across the Feds, in my opinion, for men's physique, because I've done quite a few different Feds. Apart from Fitex, they seem to like a smaller, leaner physique. If you're a little bit too big, then they won't like it. Like my friend Nick, he competed last week. He's 5'10", he's only about 82 kilos, and they told him he hasn't placed because he's too big. So it's pretty much all the same apart from them. But again, you know, that's up to us as competitors to know what the judges are looking for. It's not saying that that's wrong. That's just specifically what Fitex want. So if that's what you want to do.
And this is where we have to look at the criteria. Like me and Gino, you know, two bros, they're looking for a much more shredded look compared to a lot of other federations.
That's right, and I mean, again, coaching perspective from a bikini point of view, I find that does vary a little bit more. For example, PCA, they're quite happy to bump people up to the next category. Like G got bumped up last year, which is not what she wanted at all.
Not in PCA when you're only 5 foot. Like I wasn't going to stand a chance against those monsters.
No, because that category up, it's a big jump. There's a lot of muscle difference between bikini and trained bikini.
And I'd already pumped up to be on the stage for bikini, and they pulled me off. And I remember being backstage and seeing those other girls, and they were huge. And like I still got a fourth, but I'm not sure whether that was a sympathy fourth out of like 8. I remember just watching them pump up, and I was like, oh Christ.
So each fed's very different for bikini. We find that WNBF, they like a slightly softer look. But interestingly enough, the pro show, where was it? The one that's just gone, that Michaela was at?
Rome.
Yeah.
IFBB NPC.
Yeah, the pro qualifier in Italy. The top 3 were really quite soft, which is different to what they've been going for the rest of the year. So you can predict it as much as you want and try your best to bring in for what you think they want, but it could change. So you got to be prepared for that, because we were quite surprised at that result from last weekend. But it is what it is sometimes. That's the nature of the beast.
Do you have plans after NFM UK to try and dig a little bit more, George, or do you know?
I think it's going to depend on my look and how I feel. It would be nice. The goal was to always be ready by NFM, and then if we could start reversing out. By reversing out, it would probably be expenditure, because we can't give me more food, because my expenditure is still really high as well. But if I need to dig, then I just carry on digging. But when you're just in that mindset where it's like, well, we're going to go one of 2 ways. I'm going to be ready and we can start reversing, or do you know what? I've got to keep going to get my legs in, and that's what I'll do. But at the minute, it's just focusing on NFM, and that's my whole mindset right now, is just give it absolutely everything and breaking down these next few days, because it's low calories, low carbs, and high expenditure. So breaking it up day by day to get through each day. And I know my next check-in is Sunday, so we're going to reassess things then.
Yeah, is that something you do with clients as well? Try and get them to sort of focus on each day and boxing off their targets, and then move on to the next day when it does get to this point?
Depends on the mindset of the competitor. I've got a few guys that are just really laid back and blasé about it, and they don't really, they're just not really that bothered. And then
fine.
You get some girls, that do struggle a little bit more, and then we do need more communication to say, one day at a time, concentrate on your boxes, tick those, and then we'll concentrate on tomorrow when we get there, sort of thing. So it's very much person dependent. But generally I find guys are a lot more sort of chill about that sort of thing.
Yeah, because it's funny, isn't it? Like we've said when we spoke, George, at your last show, like the nerves and stuff, that overtaking of, it's like it overtakes your rational mind. Doesn't matter whether you're ready or not. I've had shows where it just completely overtakes your whole body, doesn't it? And you're like, why am I suddenly so nervous? And it's trying to control that so you don't get the stress response.
Definitely. And that's the biggest thing I'll always talk to the girls about, is nerves and stress, because and to be fair, considering the regional, I wasn't ready, and I was up against some very lean girls, and I knew I was going to look out of place. The nerves didn't hit me, but that could have been on the flip side, because I knew I wasn't trying to be ready and competitive. But that's why I know for like the NFM show, I said to Matt, like, sit me with the tripod, because obviously Matt and the other 2 clients are going to be in the amateur show. Sit me with the tripod, let me stick my feet up, and I'll record everything so we can YouTube it, because that's what we try and YouTube all the shows for the clients. And in that way I can keep my feet up, because we know I do turn into a water balloon, even like obviously from stress, but just generally my body holds so much water in my legs, especially, that I need to do everything. I just need to be lying horizontal, basically, just because I'm not going to be on until we worked out about 7 o'clock or something for me, maybe later.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a long day for me.
Yeah, for sure. And Matt, are you going to be changing anything with your peak? Are you going to try this one and then potentially duplicate it next week, or?
So next week, because I'm doing the back-to-back shows, I will run that very differently. I'll probably just go to maintenance a few days before and just run in. I won't do anything for Battle of Bedford, and then I will probably water manipulate overnight, dry out for NFM, and then I won't eat anything on NFM show day. Which sucks, but as I said, men's physique, you've got to, even classic, you've got to have that tight waist, and it's so much easier for me to hit a vacuum if I've got no food in my stomach. So that's the only thing I'll really do. But I'm hoping this peak goes well for PCA, and then I can replicate that for Alicante.
Yeah, because then of course you've got, what is it, 2 or 3 weeks in between?
2 weeks after NFM till Alicante, yeah.
It's quite hard, that 2 week stretch in between, isn't it?
Well, we were talking about this earlier. It's breaking it up. It's about just over a week, because obviously the show's on the Sunday. We'll get back to it on the Monday, and then we go Monday to Monday, and then we'll be traveling on the Wednesday. So
Yeah.
we're just trying to mentally think it's like a week of just pushing, and then we travel on the Wednesday, register Thursday, compete Friday, back Saturday, and then it's all done.
We'll have to alter our peak slightly for Alicante, because obviously we're flying out there. There's a lot of travel involved.
Yeah.
So obviously you don't really want to be carb loading on travel day. Although it's only a short flight, it's, I don't want the stress. And obviously G's not going to carb load anyway, but for myself, I'll probably have to do a slightly later, more aggressive carb load. But yeah, that's why I'm also doing it this time, to see how my body sort of responds to it.
Yeah. And hopefully people have got from listening today, although obviously we're talking about the hard bits of bodybuilding as well, that it is about enjoying all of these little things, like when you start looking forward to the next bit after a show, like you're going to fly out, you're going to experience international show, like have things to look forward to all the time, whether that's off season, prep, whatever phase you're in. It's falling in love with, well, bodybuilding, also your body and your capabilities, because it can be such a mind warp at any stage, can't it?
Yeah,
100%. I think that's hitting the nail on the head there, where you say, like, enjoying every phase, every single phase. Like, some people really, really struggle post show because they feel like they've got the post show blues, right? They haven't got anything to look forward to. But hang on, just take a step back and have a think. Actually, you've got loads to look forward to. Like, you've had some great feedback from your shows. Your coach should give you feedback as well on what you can improve on. Get excited about making those improvements. Like, I find that a really, really exciting time, and getting stuck in, because the food's going to come in, your energy's going to go up, your strength's going to shoot up. You can put a lot of energy and focus into your training and into your training performance, and fall in love with that process instead of getting shredded. Fall in love with getting bigger, building muscle.
It's so important though, isn't it?
Like we said, think about what you took away, whether you're first time or not, what you took away from the shows you've done. Like, do you want to try other federations? Did you enjoy that federation? What was your feedback? And then think, okay, when do you want to compete again? Work backwards from that. So it's not just an open-ended, like, what do I do now? Because bodybuilding, like, my prep is over and that was my identity for 6 months. Be like, right, I'm now going to get, like, I remember off the back end of Arnold's, I used my, like, back shot as my motivation to be like, holy shit, I need to grow some glutes. And then being like, I'm going to do this. And obviously the plan wasn't to prep, but we had given myself a vision plan of where we're going to break things up, where I'm going to grow. And we focused on performance-based lifts, like literally putting in lifts I enjoy, the numbers I want to hit, and then knowing I was going to reassess in like 3 months how things were, because I'm not someone that can have like a long-term goal, because I am incredibly impatient. I knew the plan was I wasn't ideally going to prep, but we'd broken up the vision plan that 3 months we're going to reassess, and then in another 3 months we might have done a mini cut and broken things up. So I knew I wasn't going to get on stage for a while, but I had those short-term goals to hit. So you can then still make sure, I would much rather lift with intent and, have some food in me and have my glutes back and think I'm really strong again, rather than what I can only call right now is pump sessions, trying to get through. Like, I want to feel my muscles again. I want to make sure I'm like, progressing towards that, and then using my show pictures. Yes, I'm so proud of them, but how do I want to come back better? And that was my motivation. So whatever stage you're in, enjoy it for what it is, because you're proving something to yourself. Like, training, nutrition, everything is something that's within your control. And that's something you are in control of, changing your body to make it the way you want it to be. And, if you need to take a year off, you might think that year is going to last ages and you just want to get back to the stage. Like, I remember the first show in 2019, I was adamant I was going to go for, because I finished in October, I was going to go for early shows that following year. And then lockdown hit, and I'm so glad that I didn't do those shows and I stayed consistent. And yeah, it was a bit sucky at the time, but it meant when I did get back to the stage, because I'd stayed consistent and ticked all those boxes, I bought an even better package, just because I was forced to have some patience. But that's the biggest thing. If you stay with your coach, if you have a vision plan, if you break it up, you can still then you know, enjoy that flexible time as well. So your mindset is, so when you're ready to get back into prep, you feel like you're ready to get back into prep and thoroughly enjoy it again.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's one big like take home everyone should sort of take. If you do have any first time listeners listening to this, is always be clear what phase you're supposed to be in and have a clear goal of that phase as well. So like, yeah, don't ever go for a program, or if you're with a coach or whatever, and just checking in, going through the motions, not really knowing what you're doing. Like, always have a clear goal of what phase you're in and break that phase down as well. Have mini goals within that phase. So have performance targets. Like if you want to hip thrust a certain amount, have that in there. That's a great goal. Have a squat goal, for example. Or for guys, you know, sometimes we go off measurements, you know, how big do you want to get your arms? Let's push for that. You know, it's hitting those targets can keep you motivated over time to get you to that long-term goal. It's like that cheesy analogy of like ladder to success. You can't start on the first step and then jump to the end. Like, you need to have those steps going up, and those mini goals through each phase will keep you progressing towards it. So yeah, definitely make sure you're always clear on that, and make sure that your coach is setting you those targets and goals to keep you motivated. Don't lose track of what you're trying to achieve over the long term by not having little mini goals, basically.
Yeah, because obviously stage is that big goal, and then like you say with a ladder, it's like you climb up that ladder, you get to the big goal, and then you can easily just fall straight back down. Or if you have those mini goals, you can continue and you can build yourself, and then you enjoy it more when you know exactly what you're doing.
100%. Yeah, that's it.
So I am ready to see your Instagrams pop off for the next 4 weeks and beyond. If anyone wanted to follow your journeys, or of course inquire about coaching, what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
It'd just be Instagram, yeah. So Team GMT is on Instagram.
It's the coaching page.
That's the coaching page, or it's Matt_Parker101 or Georgia Gilbert 23, is it?
Yeah.
You need to change that. You need to change that. We've been married a year. She still hasn't changed it.
I knew that was coming.
It says Georgia Parker, but like when people look for me, I'm under Georgia Gilbert 23, and it's easier to keep it like that now.
Why 23 as well?
When's my birthday?
Shouldn't have asked that.
What a way to end the pod, eh?
I'm not good with dates. I'll blame prep brain. That's what I'm going to blame.
You cannot blame prep.
It's too many carbs. He's going hypo.
Yeah.
He's going to pass out and go quiet.
Thank you for your time, guys. It's been super awesome. And if people listen and they get lots of information from this and they enjoy it, please share it on your stories, tag us on Instagram, and I'll put out a post as well. So thank you. And I'm sure I'll get you on in the future. Enjoy the peaking, Matt.
Thank you. Good luck with your show,
Good luck.
Sarah.
Thank you, you too. Bye, guys.